Welcome to Crime Podcastle's Unsolved Mystery Series, Episode 22. Today, we're diving deep into a case that's both fascinating and incredibly unsettling. The Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery. Picture this. Kolkata, India. At the heart of Howrah Station, one of the busiest railway hubs in the entire country. It's December 8th, 2012. A seemingly ordinary day, teeming with the usual rush of travelers and the constant arrival and departure of trains.
It's a place where millions of stories intersect. But on this day, a particularly dark story began to unfold.
Now imagine amidst all that chaos, a lone suitcase sits abandoned near platform number 12. It wouldn't have been unusual, right?
Lost luggage happens all the time, especially in a place like Howrah.
But this suitcase was different. It was unusually heavy, and a strange odor was seeping from it, something that definitely didn't scream forgotten clothes.
It's intriguing how these seemingly insignificant details can be the first whispers of something amiss. A strange smell, an unusual weight. Those are the things that often trigger our intuition, those subtle cues that something isn't quite right.
Absolutely, and thankfully, in this case, someone's intuition was spot on. A railway employee noticing these odd details alerted the authorities, and what they found inside that suitcase was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. The suitcase held a young woman's body crammed inside, indicating a truly disturbing crime had taken place.
The initial examination suggested she was likely in her early 20s and had been dead for at least several hours. To be the person who opened that suitcase, to be confronted with that image, it must have been a deeply unsettling experience.
I can't even imagine. And of course, the discovery immediately throws up a million questions. Who was this young woman, and how did she end up in the suitcase, abandoned on a bustling train platform?
Right from the start, the investigators were faced with a puzzle that seemed to have more missing pieces than existing ones. The first, and perhaps the most crucial piece, was her identity. There was nothing on her, no ID, no personal belongings, no clues to who she might be. She was a complete enigma.
So she was essentially a ghost. It's a chilling thought. Someone loses their life, and they're already fading into obscurity.
It certainly adds another layer of complexity to the investigation. It's like trying to solve a maze blindfolded. You can't map out the connections, the relationships, or the possible motives without knowing who you're dealing with.
So with no ID on the victim, the investigators turned to the suitcase itself, hoping for some kind of lead, a manufacturer's label, a unique tag, anything. Was there anything distinctive about the suitcase itself?
Frustratingly, no. It was a standard, nondescript black suitcase. Nothing unique, nothing that could be traced back to an owner or even a specific store. It was a dead end.
So we have a Jane Doe and a generic suitcase. It feels like we're hitting roadblocks left and right. They must have turned to the station's CCTV footage next. In a place like Howrah, there have to be cameras everywhere.
You would think so, right? And thankfully, there was a system in place. After meticulously combing through hours of footage, they finally caught a break. There, on the grainy film, was a man dragging that very suitcase through the station.
So they had their suspect right. Case closed.
Not so fast. While they could see the man, the footage was frustratingly blurry. They could see his movements. He was clearly trying to be inconspicuous, but facial recognition was impossible. And to add to the mystery, he deliberately left the suitcase on platform 12 and quickly exited the station, disappearing into the throngs of people.
So we have a mysterious victim, a suitcase that's giving us nothing, and a shadowy figure on CCTV footage. Feels like we're dealing with a ghost story.
And just when you think it can't get more complicated, the autopsy report adds another layer of complexity. It revealed that the cause of death was asphyxiation.
So she was murdered.
Yes. And there were bruises on her body, too, indicating a struggle. Someone had overpowered her, and it wasn't a quick or painless death.
This is just the beginning of our deep dive into the Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery. And already, it's more perplexing than I could have imagined. Who was this young woman? And who was the shadowy figure on the CCTV footage? Stick with us as we continue to explore the theories surrounding this baffling case.
It's a case that really captures the imagination, and in the absence of concrete answers, it's not surprising that a whirlwind of theories and speculation emerged.
It's like a real-life whodunit playing out in the headlines. Everyone wants an explanation, a narrative that makes sense of such a senseless act.
Yeah.
So what were some of the prevailing theories that people were grappling with?
Well, one of the initial theories, and perhaps the most intuitive one, was that this was a crime of passion. The brutality of the murder, the signs of a struggle, all pointed towards a deeply personal motive. Perhaps a relationship gone sour, a jealous lover, a moment of rage that spiraled out of control.
It's a scenario that's all too common, unfortunately. And in a moment of panic, in the aftermath of such a violent act, Someone might act irrationally, choosing to dispose of the body in a chaotic place like Howrah Station, hoping to disappear into the crowds, to delay the inevitable discovery.
Exactly. It's a desperate attempt to bury the consequences of their actions. But as we often see in these types of cases, desperation rarely leads to a clean getaway. There are always traces, always those tiny inconsistencies that begin to unravel the facade.
So a crime of passion, a theory rooted in the complexities of human relationships and the destructive power of unchecked emotions. What other explanations were investigators considering?
Given the location of the crime, Howrah Station, another theory quickly gained traction: human trafficking. This station, with its constant flow of people coming and going, sadly also serves as a transit point for these horrific networks. It's a tragic reality. And it wasn't a stretch to imagine that this young woman could have been caught in that web.
The lack of identification certainly lends weight to that theory. It's a tactic often used by traffickers, stripping their victims of their identities, making them nameless, faceless, and harder to track.
Exactly. And the thought that she may have been trying to escape, to reclaim her freedom, only to be met with such violence, it paints a chilling picture. It reminds us that even in the midst of so much life and movement, there are shadows lurking, preying on the vulnerable.
It's a sobering thought. Howrah Station, a symbol of connection and journeys, becomes a backdrop for something so sinister. But there was another theory that emerged, wasn't there? One that pointed towards a more calculated and methodical approach to this crime.
Yes, and this theory suggested the involvement of organized crime. The way the body was disposed of, the lack of any identifiable evidence, the perpetrator's swift and seemingly planned exit all hinted at a certain level of professional detachment, a coldness that sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators.
So not a crime fueled by passion, but a calculated act, perhaps a professional hit.
Precisely. Perhaps this young woman was caught up in something dangerous. Maybe she knew too much. Or she was simply collateral damage in a larger game being played, whatever the reason. This theory suggests she was silenced, removed from the equation with chilling efficiency.
3 distinct theories,
Yeah.
each one plausible, each one offering a glimpse into a different facet of darkness. But ultimately, as we know, the Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery remained unsolved. None of these theories could be definitively proven.
And that's what makes this case so fascinating and so frustrating. We're left to grapple with these possibilities, to weigh the evidence, to try and make sense of a crime that seems to defy explanation. But perhaps instead of focusing solely on who might have committed this crime, we can shift our attention to the challenges the investigators faced. What were some of the obstacles that prevented them from cracking this case wide open?
That's a great point. Let's delve into the investigative challenges. After all, even with the best intentions and resources, sometimes the pieces just don't fit. Where do we even begin with a case like this, where the victim is an unknown, and the crime scene is a place teeming with thousands of potential witnesses?
Well, the most glaring obstacle, and one we've already touched upon, is the lack of identifiable evidence. No fingerprints on record, no missing person reports that matched her description. Even her clothing was generic, offering no clues to her life or her connections. It was like chasing a phantom.
It's incredibly difficult to solve a murder when you don't even know who the victim is. You can't retrace her steps, delve into her relationships, or understand the complexities of her life. You're essentially starting from zero.
Exactly. It's like trying to build a house without a foundation. And to make matters worse, even the forensic analysis of the suitcase itself yielded very little. Fingerprints were smudged, likely intentionally, and there were no unique markings or traces of DNA. That could lead them back to the perpetrator. It was almost as if the person responsible had meticulously planned every step, leaving no trace of their presence.
So we have a lack of evidence, a shadowy figure on CCTV that's impossible to identify. And then there's the added challenge of Howrah Station itself, right?
Yeah.
It's not exactly a contained crime scene.
Absolutely. We're talking about one of the busiest railway stations in the world, a place where tens of thousands of people pass through every single day. It's a sea of faces, a constant flow of humanity. It would be incredibly easy for someone to blend in, to disappear into the crowd, becoming another anonymous face in the throng.
It's almost as if the station itself became an unwitting accomplice to the crime, providing a cloak of anonymity for the perpetrator.
In a way, yes. It highlights the inherent difficulties of investigating crimes in such vast and dynamic environments. How do you isolate a single thread of narrative in a tapestry woven with millions of stories?
And even if there were witnesses who saw the man with the suitcase, they probably wouldn't have thought twice about it, right? Just another traveler hauling their luggage, nothing out of the ordinary in a place like Howrah Station.
It's a phenomenon known as inattentional blindness. Our brains filter out information that doesn't seem immediately relevant, especially when we're in a stimulating environment like a crowded train station. We're so focused on our own destinations, our own journeys,
Yeah.
that we often fail to see what's right in front of us.
It's a fascinating aspect of human perception. But in this case, those overlooked details, those seemingly insignificant observations, might have held the key to unlocking the entire mystery. And so despite their best efforts, despite appeals to the public for information, the trail went cold. The Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery remained unsolved. It's a story that chills you to the bone. It's a case that stays with you, isn't it? Even years later, the unanswered questions linger. Why do you think this particular mystery resonated so deeply with the public?
I think it taps into a primal fear we all share, the fear of the unknown, the realization that darkness can intrude upon even the most seemingly ordinary places. Howrah Station, a symbol of connection, of journeys beginning and ending, became a symbol of tragedy and unanswered questions. It disrupts our sense of order, our belief that we can control our surroundings and keep chaos at bay.
It's like a crack in the facade of everyday life, a glimpse into a reality we often try to ignore. And the fact that the victim remains unidentified, a nameless soul lost in the crowd, adds another layer of tragedy to the story. She becomes a symbol of vulnerability, of the countless lives lost and forgotten, their stories untold.
It's a potent reminder that anyone can become a victim, that even in a sea of faces, one can vanish without a trace. It challenges our perception of safety, making us question the very fabric of the world we inhabit.
And it raises profound questions about justice, or the lack thereof. When a crime goes unsolved, it leaves a scar on the collective consciousness. It's a wound that hasn't been allowed to heal, a constant reminder that the scales of justice haven't been balanced.
The not knowing, the unanswered questions, can haunt a community, a city, even a nation. It's a weight that hangs heavy, a shadow that stretches across time.
The Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery, then, becomes more than just a crime. It transforms into a cautionary tale, a whispered warning that evil can lurk in the most unexpected corners, that even in the midst of bustling crowds and frenetic activity, darkness can find a foothold.
It's a sobering thought, and it forces us to confront our own vulnerability, our own mortality. It makes us wonder how many other secrets are hidden, how many other lives have been touched by tragedy, their stories swallowed by the immensity of the world.
The Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery is a puzzle with missing pieces, a story without an ending. It challenges our perceptions, forces us to question our assumptions, and reminds us that even in the seeming chaos of daily life, darkness can find a way to intrude, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a lingering sense of unease.
It's a case that highlights the complexity of human nature, the fragility of life, and the enduring power of mystery. It serves as a stark reminder that despite our best efforts, some truths remain elusive, hidden beneath layers of time and circumstance.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Howrah Station Suitcase Mystery. It's a case that continues to fascinate and baffle, a testament to the enduring allure of the unknown. If you'd like to explore more unsolved mysteries, be sure to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle for more deep dives into the world of true crime and the shadows that linger at the edges of our understanding.